Well, we're here out on one of our favorite food plots, and I wanted to talk something that just gets to me, and I think people make comments just to get a rise out of me. Don't you ever think that happens?
Yeah, that's why I try and stay out of the comments.
But the one thing is weeds in food plots. That weeds are a good thing in food plots. To me, it's very misleading. It's really bad information, and there's a trend, and it's because you'll see some of the more, quote, professional deer management individuals, groups, whatever, will push things like that because don't you know that ragweed is 22% protein during the summertime? Goldenrod is this, and they'll spout out these numbers that sound scientific and everything, and with the thought that weeds are good in your food plots, and that couldn't be further from the truth. I have 10 reasons, and it's going to be rapid fire. Dylan, what do you think of that? Rapid fire and weeds in food plots. You're a big fan of weeds in food plots, right?
I'm not. I've seen a lot of these articles get spread around on it, and I'll keep mine. I won't go down the rabbit hole, but to me it's a woke, progressive thing against chemicals. To me is what I perceive it as.
And I think, we'll start this off, and this is something I really feel, professional farmers. I've known some that are really bad farmers. Going back into the late 80s in Michigan where I used to hunt, there was one that, pretty bad farmer, whether it was getting his crops out on time, equipment breaking, poor equipment, just unreliable. But one of the big things is weeds in the ag fields. And so to me, what I've always looked at is when you're going down the road, you can tell a bad farmer when there's a lot of weeds in the field. Now, maybe they're organic. That's a different story. That's one of the points in here. But a lot of times, if you have weeds in ag fields, it's a sign of a lazy or bad farmer, nor different than other farming practices of poor timing, getting crops in at the wrong time, getting them out at the wrong time. There's that too. It's one thing if it's mistakes. It's another thing if it's consistent, and it's no different for the food plotters to me. You can always look at a good food plotter if they have weed-free plots, and if you don't, it's bad food plotting practices. I'm going to go through these 10 right here of why it's bad to have, and just kind of rapid fire here. Destroys volume. When you have weeds in the plot, look at this pure rye right here. Rye is a good thing. The pure old rye down there, we just sprayed this and planted yesterday. And you can spray on top of the seed. There's all kinds of buckwheat seeds in here. They're going to come up, but destroys volume because when you have something competing with your intended crop, doesn't matter if it's switchgrass or food plots, it diminishes stem diameter and overall volume. So when you have 50% weeds in a field, it takes out 80-90% of the volume, and that's a really bad thing. You're losing that volume going into the fall. Summer is not the time when the deer need it. It spreads noxious weeds when you're not taking care of these food plot weeds that you have in here. Noxious weeds can be pigweed, water hemp. They're weeds that offer little to no value, even if they did offer value during the summertime. But what happens is something like a water hemp or pigweed can literally take over a food plot within 2 years. You get 5 plants, then 5,000, and then the whole food plot is taken over because the seeds are like fine dust. Wrong timing for helping deer. Yeah. Deer eat these. You can even look at protein value. You can sound really smart by saying ragweed is this percentage of this and goldenrod is this. There's lots of different. What was the weed today you were saying you could eat like salad?
Goosefoot.
Goosefoot. Yeah, that you can look at these things and say, well, these are so good. Look at these things down in the ground. The problem is that during the summer, deer have those weeds everywhere. You're not doing anything special. And then at the same time, the deer don't need your food during the summertime. Summer's a time of plenty. So it's the complete wrong timing. When deer getting into the fall, food supply is shrinking every single day as it goes through October, November, December, no matter where you live, with the exception of, say, Texas, where their drought time is summer, and then you get these nice rains during decent weather during the winter time, and then you have green. A different case there. But when you have those weeds that are edible during the summertime, they're not there in the fall, they're not there during the winter, and that's when deer need your help the most, even if you look at it that way, that they need your help. So it's really important. promotes laziness. Bad farmers have weeds, and so do bad food plotters. I feel the same way. Most bad weeds are unattractive for deer. You don't get to pick which weeds invade your plot. That's really important, because now we've developed a small percentage. Realize that you shouldn't, only a small percentage look at weeds as a good thing. But at the same time, if you're not correctly identifying the weeds you have, some of those weeds are horrible, and they smartweed in Wisconsin that we've dealt with on the lease for 11 years that we had. Smartweed is really bad. It can completely take over and destroys everything else, and deer don't eat it, and it's no value any time of the year. But it takes over your food plot. It's really hard to control. So you don't get to pick which weeds come into your plot, and when bad ones settle in, it can destroy your plots. Evidence of bad plotting practices. Good rotations, which you should always have in good food plot practices, help destroy weeds. So every time you're rotating, and we're rotating good rotations, meaning we have this rye, and we have video where we missed a strip of rye planting in the spring this year, and you can see all the weeds that come in. But look at all here, there's hardly any weeds. You get into our older rye right here, the younger rye. This rye helps control weeds. Our buckwheat during the summertime, it's a true smother crop. It helps compete and destroy weeds. That's why they call it a smother crop. So you have those good rotations in for planting food plots. You're building your soil. You can control your weeds to a much better degree. And that limits the amount of herbicide we need to use. We only use the lowest hole in the bucket when it comes to herbicide. We use what we have to use to destroy what weeds we have. We actually identify them and know what weeds we have to destroy. We don't just spray chemicals on the ground just to do it for the fun of it. Many weeds are invasive. Not every weed is native. So when you're looking at it like, oh, these weeds are good, look at them. Not all weeds are native. So you're allowing the people that would say, well, we don't want chemicals on the property. We only want to plant native species, which I suppose you don't like ringneck pheasants or apple trees because they're not native, I'm sure. But brown trout, things like that. But bottom line is, you're allowing these weeds that are invasive because someone told you that. No, I think it's just an excuse. Even organic farmers attempt to control weeds. Farmers that aren't using herbicide, they're doing so with constant disking, tilling, mowing, manure cover crop, or manure cover spreading. So there's a lot of different ways. We have organic, true seed collecting farmers around here that actually spread giant tarps on the ground. Now, obviously, we have 19 acres out here. We're not going to destroy the environment, but they don't believe in chemicals. So let's put, 100 yards by 50 yards of a football field of tarps on the ground, and to control weeds coming in. So that's something. But a lot of organic farmers attempted to take care of that. Good weed volume is never as good as good food plot volume. So when you have full food plot volume, you're going to help the deer and wildlife the most. Doesn't matter if it's switchgrass or your actual food plots. There's never any amount of weed that's going to overcome the amount of the good stuff that you have in your food plot planted. And finally, weeds are good to me. And like Dylan said, his thoughts on it too, but to me it's just an excuse. It really is. I believe there is some of that born from we don't want to spray chemicals, or maybe a misunderstanding of chemicals in general. But a lot of it is just an excuse for poor food plotting practices, poor timing. And let's face it, when we're taking care of our weeds, there are certain times that we have to do it, but the majority of the year we don't. So it's not about spending time to kill the weeds, it's just knowing the correct timing. Some people are intimidated by sprayers. You look at and you see chemical per ounces of water, gallons of water. That makes it really hard. You just need to calibrate your sprayer, know what it takes to spread at whatever speed you're driving. This amount of water in your tank covers an acre. Figure out what an acre is. It's 70 yards by 70 yards, 43,560 square feet. Go out, spread that, see how many gallons it took, try to limit your turns, turn off the sprayer on corners, things like that. And then add the appropriate amount of chemical. It doesn't matter if you spread 20 gallons of water to deliver 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate, or 10 gallons of water to deliver 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate. It's 2 quarts per acre of glyphosate per acre. Doesn't matter how much water you use. And it's the same with any chemical measurement. So, take take the plunge if you've never done it, but don't let someone talk you into, for many different reasons, that weeds are good in your food plots. I believe, and I have a lot of experience doing this, and I look at all the farmers' fields around here that are professionally planted, but weeds are good. It's just not the case. Now, we are and we own Pure Wildlife Blends Seed Company, and we really want you to try us out. We have about 19 different offerings online. These all go back to my roots of 25 years ago and up to 30 years ago when I first started food plotting. But making these combinations, I sit at the table with our seed supplier, put all these blends together. We use pure seed with no filler, no garbage. And it's early May right now, and it's a great time to start looking at your seed. We do not run out of seed. Doesn't matter if it's switchgrass, clover, perennial blends, our fall blends, whatever it is, we don't run out. We don't want you to come at one point and then we're not here, come back in another, keep looking. We always have it on supply. Wes, our food plot seed manager, is right back there. He's shipping out daily, and really want you to check us out. Of course, we have the web classes. We go to clients every year, almost 300 a year across the country. Books. There's lots of stuff you can check out on our site, lots of free material. But I really urge you to check out purewildlifeblends.com.